So, welcome to this session. Nice to see you. I appreciate that you interrupt your lunch break in order to have a short networking session about EuroDIG this year. It was the 18th edition of EuroDIG, the 18th in a row. We have been to a different European country ever since every year. But this year we came back to where it all started from, and that made it a very special session. Unfortunately, the Council of Europe will not join us today. They were supposed to be with us here, but the Deputy Secretary General had to go to another mission and had to be accompanied by those who agreed being here on stage today. So unfortunately, but I should submit my best greetings to you. You will see that over there and also at our booth we have our annual messages, and as I said already, messages from Strasbourg #2, because messages from Strasbourg #1 were drafted in 2008. Just to remind us all, EuroDIG was the forum that invented the concept of messages, which was later on adopted by the global IGF and by many other local IGFs as well. And if you want to have a hard copy, get one after the session over there. If you want to have two, get 2 or 3, whatever. The overarching theme this year was not super creative, because we recycled the overarching theme from last year, which was so good. That was balancing innovation and regulation, and because we were at the Council of Europe, we added safeguarding human rights. We found that was a good idea, and safeguarding human rights is possibly something that is of great importance in these times. Of course, WSIS +20 review was one of the focuses in this year's EuroDIG, as it is here at the IGF, and of course we have prepared our messages on the WSIS +20 review, which we would like to briefly share with you, but possibly not going too much into detail, because this is subject to many other sessions here at the IGF. And then we would also like to highlight one element of EuroDIG, which is very close to our heart, which is youth participation. And Frances Douglas Thompson, got it right? She was one of our EuroDIG participants this year, and she has prepared an excerpt of the EuroDIG messages from this year's EuroDIG. They met already the months before online, prepared for their participation in EuroDIG and EuroDIG. They had 3 days of hard work, discussion, but also fun, I hope, at EuroDIG, and then EuroDIG as the conference was, of course, also included. And then I hope we have a little bit of 10 minutes, it's only a 30-minute session, 10 minutes of exchange with you on either what the two of our speakers, Thomas, our president, and Francis, our EuroDIG participant, are telling us, or we have also prepared some guiding question, let's put it that way. But if you would like to engage with us on any other topic, we are very flexible here. And without further ado, I hand over to Thomas Schneider, Swiss ambassador, well known to most of you, and president of the EuroDIG Support Association, to share the WSIS +20 review messages. Thomas, I think you should stand up and I take your seat for the moment.
Are you sure it's so comfortable here?
I don't have a seat, so it's possibly better.
So we need, you see, we are working on very low resources, so we share almost everything. Okay, so yes, Sandra has already said it. In addition to thematic sessions, of course, the EuroDIG community also cares about the architectural issues about global digital governance, and we had before already like community gathered voices from Europe, not just the EU or the governments or single stakeholders, but already for the IGF improvement discussion for the GDC, EuroDIG collected input. It was facilitated by a former UK government member, by Mark Harwell, who is very good at this, and also with him we spent some time gathering information or views from European stakeholders on the ongoing WSIS +20 review process, and of course the outcomes are absolutely surprising in the sense that first of all, everyone thinks that multi-stakeholder approach is fundamental to a successful, to successfully finding solutions for all kinds of digital issues, and that the regional diversity, also the NRIs, are key to actually bring in as many voices as possible into global processes. So we need global processes, you need regional processes, national processes that then are able to distill everything so that the variety of voices are able to be heard. Of course, the EuroDIG community thinks that the IGF is a fundamentally important platform for multi-stakeholder, global multi-stakeholder dialogue. It's not a decision-making platform, but it is a decision-shaping platform. We have had many instances where new issues have come up at the IGF or EuroDIG or elsewhere, and then have picked up by decision-making bodies like intergovernmental institutions, but also by businesses and so on. And of course, the request, what a surprise, is that the EuroDIG community think that we should now move from renewing the IGF mandate only on a 10 years basis, but which is always difficult then to plan if it goes at the end of the 10 years phase. So it should be a permanent, the ITU should become a permanent institution that you don't have to renew every 10 years like what is it now. And of course, another key element is that the WSIS +20 process should not be happening behind closed doors in New York among some diplomats, but it should be as open, as transparent, as inclusive, and also as diverse as possible. So this is a very clear message, and there's still, things are getting better, but there's still some room for improvement. And another point is also that the IGF is not just about critical internet resources and domain names like it used to be mainly, not only, but that was in the focus 20 years ago when it was created. The IGF has moved on, has taken on all the new relevant issues from AI to data governance to other things, and that this should continue. The ITU should be the place where new and emerging issues are discussed, and first ideas, first perspectives of common opportunities and challenges should be developed. And just to say that, of course, we had an exchange with the European co-facilitator for the WSIS +20 process with Suela Janina, the Albanian perm rep in New York, and she's also here around. So if you happen to see her, of course, you may also, again, pass on European messages to her. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I would suggest we invite for one intervention, one reply to what Thomas just said, or question, whatever you like. I come down with a microphone. You have a microphone? Fantastic. So please signal to that lady with a microphone if you would like to speak up. There is only a chance. No.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. You said that you like...
Please introduce yourself.
I'll introduce myself, Sandra. My name is Hans Seus. I'm the Business Operations Manager of .eu. So we operate the top-level domain on behalf of the European Commission. You mentioned earlier that you like messages to be picked up and also in a way by decision makers and intergovernmental bodies. What is then one of the key topics that you would like them to see pick up in the very near future?
Like from this year's EuroDIG?
Yes.
Well, it's not just one, it's several ones. One, of course, that was all over the place was AI governance, human rights aspect, data, how to deal with something like privacy in an environment where it's very difficult to actually say what is private data, what is not private data. Another big, but we'll get to that, is how to involve young people, not just in a dialogue, but also then in decision making. You get the key points on a few pages here in this leaflet, of course also online, so I recommend you to read it. I must have forgotten all the other 8 or 10 important points, so forgive me if I didn't mention the ones that you care most. But yeah, it's basically from human rights, economic angles. Geopolitical discussions, of course, were also there. So it covered the whole range.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And as I said, only one intervention. We give another chance after the contribution from Francis. Francis, please go ahead.
Okay. So yes, as Sandra rightly said, I am a youth digger, which means that I attended both the sessions online and also the sessions in person. We had 3 days. They were very youth-led. At all points, it was the youth who were saying what mattered to us, what was pertinent to us, and what were our stances on these issues. And I think in this short amount of time, what I really would like to focus on is where controversies lie, because I think it's very easy as a young person to think that everyone in your network in Europe has similar ideas about things like content moderation, digital literacy, the role of generative AI, and whether these things are good or bad and how we should regulate or not regulate against these issues. And so this is what I am hoping to present today, and then get your advice or opinions or perspectives on these issues. So the first one, we had 5 broad messages. I'm going to focus on 2 today. The first one is about digital literacy. So we all, broadly speaking, agreed that education is incredibly vital and important for young people in order to give them awareness about both the risks and the benefits of things like social media and generative AI. What we could not agree on is necessarily how this balance of a rollout of digital literacy operates, right? So who decides on the syllabus for digital literacy, and how do these issues get presented? So, for example, do we see generative AI as something that's necessarily a positive and wholesale good for society and education? Is it an assistant, or is it actually something that creates complacency within young students and means the skill sets they leave education with are not nearly as good as they used to be? Does it mean that young people aren't aware of the sources of information like they used to be, and the kind of skills you got in things like history about learning where resources and sources come from is now eroded? So we had different ideas about this, and we didn't come to any clear agreement on what the syllabus looks like, but just that the syllabus is incredibly important because the digital space is increasing in how much it's going to be part of young people's lives, and you can't just not be in the digital space, and so you must know how to engage with it in a way that's sensible and be aware of the benefits and the risks. So this is the first thing. The second thing is on content moderation, and this is what surprised me the most, because myself and another sector or contingent of the group of youth diggers, when we were coming to discuss in our discussion and debate spaces before the EuroDIG, some of us said content moderation is great. We think that things like warnings, bannings, flagging information that is clearly misinformation, is clearly deep fakes, or is clearly inciting violence, or is harmful to us, this should be very strictly dealt with. And then another group said, this is very worrying for us, and this idea of very harsh, stringent content moderation is worrying for freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and the capacity for young people and all people to be engaging with information of all different types. So then this was very surprising to me. And so what we did decide on was something that could be very good, is if we had increased how users on places like social media can better understand where what they're being given comes from, right? So you can press maybe an information thing on the corner of your post and see, why is the algorithm feeding me this? So that instead of passively sort of being led into echo chambers on social media, you therefore have more of a conscious awareness as to why you're being fed the things you're being fed. And then you can also say, actually, I don't want to see more of this, or I do want to see more of this, or even I want to see the other side of this. If it's a political issue or if it's a fact and you doubt it, then can I see other sources that are also reporting on this topic? So that's what we all agreed was good. But yes, we didn't agree exactly what should be strictly banned and taken off, and whether anything should be strictly taken off these online sites. Is the very point of social media and these online spaces to have anyone saying whatever they want, and is that good if you can have a critical awareness? And then also you get into the, is it censorship, and who decides what gets taken off and why, and is there bias there? So yeah, that was another point that I think was very important. The last thing I'd say is I very much agree with Thomas when he says that the European dialogue is a place where policy issues are informed, right? So decisions are not necessarily made, but they are very much informed, and the kind of content that I saw at EuroDIG was so varied and so informative, and things that I wouldn't have been able to engage with if I hadn't had gone, and topics that I wouldn't have been able to conceptualize in the way I can now if I hadn't had been able to attend these panel discussions and been taken very seriously in the process. So yeah, that I'm very grateful for. And that's all I would say. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Francis. And I think we all agree we could feel the enthusiasm that came out of this year's EuroDIG cohort. And we are very happy that we can offer this element in our program. I would ask you now one intervention already, but as I said, if you would like to have a greater conversation on what Francis just said, flag us and we will change our plans and continue on this one. Please introduce yourself.
Is it? It's on. Okay, thank you. My name is Thomas. I'm a former youth delegate or youth digger for last year. And I thought what you said about how some of the conversations that you end up in there are quite interesting, and how you didn't realize that there are so many perspectives, and there are, you know, there's always a counterpoint to your point. And that is the whole point, right? You're in a space where you get to debate these things with other engaged youth. And then on a tangent point of what you said, do you see for youth online, and is the overall policy goal to lessen time spent online for youth, or do you think it is more about making sure that people or younger people get to see the right or wrong type of stuff online? Do you want to make a clarification point on that?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. So I guess you could rephrase it to be like, is it quality or quantity? I think that there was a session yesterday about social media bans, and this is also something we talked a lot about at the EuroDIG and EuthDIG. Should you just get children off social media completely so that it's zero time spent on these apps? I think when we think about information pollution and what content you are consuming, obviously the quality matters. That's the first thing. But what matters more, I mean, I also think there's a lot of youth voices. I think I'd be quite happy completely off social media, to be honest. And I have very limited interaction with social media. But when we were talking with the youth voices, what was so good about the EuroDIG was that you also met a lot of people who said, that's a crazy thing for much older politicians and policymakers to be deciding on my behalf, that suddenly I, as a 15 or 16-year-old, now am not allowed into these spaces, which are meant to be open, accessible, and free democratic spaces. And even if, you know, the content isn't always good, some of the good content is life-changing for some people. So of course you have this argument. I think that was, it's a very good example of an issue that is, so multifaceted and has people who feel very strongly, who are young, about this issue. And so, I think it's difficult to just say people can't go on it at all. I think time spent on it does matter because it's an opportunity cost. You're not spending time doing other positive things like being outside, but yeah.
Any other intervention or question? In the back, please introduce yourself as well.
Jan Erbgut from Geneva Macro Labs, University of Geneva, also active with the program committee. In Geneva, people say multilateralism is dead. And at the same time, we see governments often don't have a clue. So how can we fix this? If we leave internet policy, technology regulation to governments that don't want to talk to each other, neither to us, how can we fix the issues that we have at hand?
Thomas, that's possibly something you could take on.
Yes. First of all, I need to say that I've been working for the Swiss government now for 22, 3, something like this years. And in all these years, there has always been, whenever we talked with the foreign ministry about Geneva, the UN is in a crisis. It has never not been in a crisis. But of course, that's one thing. But of course, the crisis now is slightly more serious than earlier perceived crises. And then it may sound silly, but every crisis can also be a chance. It may force you to rethink a few things, to try and do things differently. So crisis, yes, but I wouldn't say it's dead or crippled or something. And things may change quickly. Also, if a few people that are powerful in the world change, sometimes things can change. But I think it is now also the time, and this is also part of the UN 80 discussions, the 80th anniversary. What does not work? How can we try and make things work? But of course, if member states don't agree, then they will not let the UN or the ITU, whatever, the UNESCO do anything. And this is why it is even more important that in these institutions you do not just have the governments, but you have the other stakeholders, you have civil society, business, academia, because they want things done. And if their own government is maybe not constructive for whatever reason, actually businesses and people are more constructive than governments that have their own interest. I say this as a strong defender of direct democracy because we have made not such bad experiences in my country. Yeah, and who knows what. Of course, politicians are not most knowledgeable in average about digital issues, but they are neither on space issues or on how a car works and so on and so forth. It is important that if they are not experts themselves, that they have experts that they listen to and that the society discusses these things. I hope that answers at least partially what you asked. Thank you.
Thanks for the positive perspective.
Are there any other hand? Ah, fantastic.
Yes, Janice Richardson, expert to the Council of Europe. At the Council of Europe, we believe that active participation, especially of young people, is really important. Do you have any great ideas to get a lot more young people involved in the type of work that you're now involved in?
That's a very good question. I think EuroDIG is an incredible example of youth participation and achieving very, I don't know how. I would say that something like EuroDIG takes people who might not necessarily have a background in something like internet governance, provides the opportunity for them to be involved because it provides financial assistance for travel, for accommodation. It provides a space for open dialogue that isn't top-down. And I think that's important because if you want youth to be able to clearly express what they feel and their opinions and their perspectives, then it can't be top-down. It can't be someone dictating to you what you ought to think or how you ought to feel about this or how you should conceive of these ideas. It should be bottom-up, basically. And I think as well, another way to involve youth is not only through something like EuroDIG, but also just making sure that young people feel like they're taken seriously in these spaces. And that's what I found so surprising about EuroDIG and EuroDIG was that at all times our questions were very much always answered, taken seriously, even outside of the conferences and panel discussions. Conversations with older experts were encouraged, and it all felt very, very nice. So I think, schemes like EuroDIG, making sure that it's feasible in terms of economics, and then also making sure that this gets out there, right? So that people who have gone post it on LinkedIn so other people can press on it, sharing it through schools, just making sure that there's an awareness there of these kind of schemes, and maybe also encouraging young people and giving them spaces in things like the European Parliament so that they can understand how the Parliament works, how commissions work, how councils operate, and therefore know that these kind of topics are being talked about and have a seat at the table. Yeah.
Thank you. There's a gentleman in the back.
Hello. Am I audible? This is Chetan Sharma from Data Mission Foundation Trust India. I'd like to apologize at the outset. Some of the questions that I'm asking are very frank. In this age and time when we are seeing one humanitarian crisis unfolding after another, one crisis just right next door from where we all are assembled in Ukraine, the internet policy dialogues or the governance platforms have, what has been their role and contribution? I'd like to just know. As opposed to even some of the mainstream media that have played a humongous role in sensitizing communities and raising up the deep humanitarian issues, we had this opportunity to build an advocacy, we had an opportunity to build opinions because this is a much closer community. Sadly, it has not happened. Now, if this was not enough, then we seem to be not even receiving proper information or the information which is transparent, accountable. We have said, no, this seemed to be fake, AI generated, etc., etc. And this is happening even on many of the social media and on the internet platforms. I'd like to ask, sir, what is your view on this, and how is it that we can prevent further degradation, which seems to be exacerbating the humanitarian crisis we already are in? Thank you.
Is that question directed to one specific, to Francis or to Thomas? To Thomas, or to both?
Yes, it's quite complex the development that you describe, if I understand it correctly. And the answer is probably also not an easy one. In the end, yeah, we do have tendencies. I've been talking to Wolfgang Kleinwächter actually after at the IGF in Riyadh, is an old German friend of mine, and he said that, yeah, he's losing faith in the German people, in the American people, in democracy, because you elect people that do not take the truth serious, that say A today and B tomorrow and so on. To some extent, we may be a little bit also victims of a success, in particular here in Europe, where we had some decades of peace, and after the fall of the Berlin Wall, we maybe thought that now everything will be fine. But then people realized that working in a free, competitive society is also hard. You have to struggle every day for paying your bills, for, I don't know, competing with other people and so on. And you have lots of information, lots of media. They all struggle, also compete to survive economically. So that maybe at some point in time, people get tired of the freedom, because in the internet you could check everything where it comes from, but this takes time. And if you work hard and are tired in the evening, you don't want to be a good Democrat and spend 3 hours informing yourself factually. So to some extent, it is a period where people maybe start forgetting the value of democracy, but also what it means, the work, the effort that it needs to keep a democracy, keep free and quality media alive. And then they are sometimes inclined to follow people that tell them, just follow me, you don't have to worry, I will sort everything out for you, now it's your turn. But I'm also a historian, so maybe I hope, and it has happened in the past, that when people start believing simple answers by people that give them simple answers, things normally get worse. Unfortunately, some people suffer in these periods, but at some point in time, people realize that the simple answers may not be the right ones, and then they will start fighting again for democracy, for freedom of expression, for quality information. So things come and go in waves, and I think that also a gathering like this is, we just need to keep on fighting. We need to keep on fighting for good governance, for fairness in societies, for a public debate. Other people fight for other things. We should together fight for a society which is fair and balanced and free. So the fight will never stop. Those that think that once you have achieved something, you can stop fighting, you will lose it, because there are others that fight against it. So that's a little bit of my recollection.
You are not audible, gentlemen, without a microphone. And I must also say we are in the red timer now. Possibly you don't see the timer, but I see it. We have a couple of seconds. Yes, so we give the last word to you.
How are you perceiving the world, and how do we turn it into a good one again? That would be interesting to hear.
Well, I just wanted to say on the topic you raised about humanitarian crisis and even war and conflict, that at the EuroDIG there were quite a few sessions about conflict, and they were very important for policymakers, the private sector, and also NGOs and governments. We talked about drones, autonomous weapon systems. We had perspectives from the private sector about why they thought these should be used. We also had NGOs saying why there are serious ethical concerns and the use of these drones in current contemporary warfare. That was very important, because then you have people of all different stakeholders discussing these issues and sharing why they are so concerned and the reasons for that. Then we had one about internet and using internet or taking away a country's internet and using that as a form of attack, right? This is weaponizing the internet or lack of access to it, and how that affects people and how that can create very bad humanitarian crises. And we also had one about as you say, the proliferation of misinformation about war and humanitarian crises, and how we can deal with that, how we can put in place regulation, different ideas about how people can come to know this image is fake and this is not actually a real picture from the scene. This is something that's been generated. So I think these dialogues are very important for addressing issues in humanitarian crises and for addressing issues in conflict zones. And I don't think that this is just a discussion. I think it actually impacts, when people go away from these dialogues, how they perceive this issue. So I think it does make a real change.
Okay, thank you very much. I feel it's time to wrap up. We graciously got 2 more minutes, of which one is already over. And since I have the mic, I have to say examples like France's, but there are many others that are really the ones that making us proud that we actually going in the right direction in engaging youth. Just to let you know, for our call for application for EuroDIG was responded by 429 applications. We had really struggled this year of inviting them, of paying the travel costs, in particular for youth participants from countries that are a bit further away from Strasbourg, like Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, because flight tickets are just out of the space. So if there is someone in the audience who has deep pockets, it's good invested here. It's good invested in the next generation. So please help us to continue and bringing up programs, not just the EuroDIG, but also in particular the EuroDIG. And thank you very much. Reach out to us. We have a joint booth with the other NRIs if you would like to have a deeper discussion on this. Thank you very much.